Hi everyone, and we're back with more Sword of Valeria. One of the most highly anticipated characters coming out soon is Taair, and with good reason. He's a top tier character that can serve as an energy battery for your entire team. This makes him a highly valuable character that can fit in with just about any team. So in this video, I'm going to go over his skill build as well as his potential skill and equipment setups. First, we have his trait skill. It's called Historian. There's a lot to his trait skill, so I'm going to go over the first set of text first, and then we'll go over the second part of the text next. So for the first part of his trait skill, it has to do with this interactive object called Scroll. This is an object that allows Taair to gain one stack of knowledge when he stays on the tile. If other characters stay on the tile, they'll damage the scroll. Basically, they'll destroy the scroll, so Taair won't be able to pick it up. It will just make the scroll disappear. So in terms of the stack of knowledge, knowledge is a mark that allows the use of historical skills when possessed. And we'll go over those skills in more detail in a moment. So at the start of the turn, one scroll will appear on a random empty tile within 3 tiles of Taair. He'll have to move to pick up the scroll, and when picking it up, he gains 1 stack of knowledge and then gains 1 random level 2 buff. So buffs like increase attack 2, crit rate, physical defense, magic defense, healing, increase movement 1, and immunity to attribute debuff. And the buff will last for 2 turns. He can also move an additional 3 tiles after picking up the scroll. Basically, since you have to move to pick up the scroll, they give you another chance to move again to reposition him after you pick up the scroll, which is great. That gives you the chance to reposition him next to your team and set him up for the next turn. And for this last part, for every 2 stacks of knowledge he has, he can use historical skills 1 time. These historical skills are full-fledged skills that you get to select which one you want to use, and they don't take up a skill slot. The historical skills is its own slot that lets you select between 3 skills, which we're going to go over in a moment, and you'll still have your 3 additional skill slots to use for the rest of his skills on his skill tree. So for his historical skills, the first skill is called Historical Truth. This is an instant skill that inflicts movement down 2, which is a debuff that reduces movement by 2 tiles, and Vulnerability 2, which is a debuff that increases damage taken by 20%. These debuffs are applied to one enemy for 2 turns. You'll need 2 stacks of knowledge to cast the skill, and when you use the skill, it consumes 2 stacks of knowledge. He has other ways of getting stacks of knowledge besides just picking up the scrolls, but we're going to go over that when I go over the second part of his trait skill. His second historical skill is called Learn from Past. This is an instant skill that's also a healing skill, where Taair dispels 2 debuffs from all enemies within 2 tiles around the target and heals them by 30% of his magic attack. This also requires 2 stacks of knowledge and consumes 2 stacks of knowledge when used. This skill is amazing because it's an AoE healing and dispel skill, and since it's an instant skill, you'll be able to use another skill after this. And if you have enough knowledge stacks, you can use this skill multiple times, or you can use it in combination with the other historical skills. The last historical skill is called Hero's Epic. This is another instant skill, but it's a support skill, where Taair grants increased damage 2, which is a buff that increases damage by 20%, and damage reduction 2, which is a buff that decreases damage taken by 20%. These buffs are applied to target allies for 2 turns, and he additionally heals them by 50% of his magic attack. Again, this also requires consuming 2 stacks of knowledge. All 3 of these historical skills are very valuable, and what makes them so great is they don't require energy and don't have a cooldown. They're all an integral part of his trait skill and this knowledge mechanic. So as long as you have stacks of knowledge, you can use these skills and you can use multiple of them at one time. And since they're all instant skills, you'll also be able to use other skills from his skill tree that cost energy. The second section of his trait skill goes over how he's getting stacks of knowledge besides just picking up the scrolls. The maximum amount of stacks of knowledge Taair can hold is 6. At base star level, the maximum amount of knowledge stacks is 2. At 2 stars, it increases to a maximum of 4 stacks, and at 4 stars, he reaches the maximum of 6 stacks. So star level is going to play a big role in how many of those historical skills you can use in one turn. So Taair will inherently gain stacks at the start of battle. So he'll gain 5 stacks of knowledge at the start of battle at 5 stars. At base level, it starts off at 1 stack, at 2 stars it's 2, at 3 stars it's 3, and so on. So for every star level that you get with Taair, you're going to get 1 additional stack of knowledge at the start of battle. He also gets a movement increase by 1 tile. At base level, you won't have this. He gets this part of his trait skill at 3 stars. So for the next part of his trait skill, when casting healing and support skills, the maximum range is increased by 2 tiles. This is at 5 stars. At base level, you get a 1 tile increase in range. For the next part of his trait skill, when Taair casts a skill, he'll additionally heal the target by 25% of his magic attack. This is another part of his trait skill that incrementally increases as you star level him up. So at base level, it's 15% of his magic attack. At 2 stars, it's 20% of his magic attack, and at 4 stars, it maxes out at 25% of his magic attack. And for the very last part of his trait skill, he'll only have this at 5 stars. So at the start of the turn, he'll also gain 1 stack of knowledge. This particular line is a big one, because he'll gain a stack of knowledge at the start of every turn, and then he'll gain an additional stack of knowledge from the scroll that's going to appear on the map, and when you pick that up, you're getting another stack of knowledge. So he'll be getting 2 stacks of knowledge every turn. But this also means you won't have to move to get stacks of knowledge by picking up the scroll, because you're inherently getting 1 every turn. So if you need to cast a skill to support your team, you'll have the stacks of knowledge to be able to do that, without having to move and pick up the scroll first. So the more star levels Taair has, he becomes an absolute monster because of the sheer number of support skills he can cast in a single turn. And I haven't even gotten into his skill tree yet, and there are some ridiculous support skills on his skill tree. Before we get into his skill tree, he does start with another skill called Healing Spell. This is a healing skill that heals the target by 100% of his magic attack and dispels 1 debuff on the target. This is a nice basic healing skill, but Taair has so many amazing support skills, you won't be wasting a slot on this skill, especially when he has the ability to heal with his historical skills. So now we'll go over his skill tree. At rank 1, we have 2 support skills. First, we have a skill called Good News from Afar, also called 1,000-Mile Echo. This is a support skill that restores 4 energy to the target ally and grants Increase Attack 2, which is a buff that increases physical and magic attack by 20%, Movement Increase 2, which is a buff that increases the distance a character can move by 2 tiles, and Speed Increase 2, which is a buff that increases speed by 100, and these buffs last for 2 turns. This is a great support skill because it has a lot of useful buffs. And it's a great combo between increasing the damage of your ally and restoring 4 energy, which is huge. It does have some drawbacks because it does have a 3-turn cooldown, and it's only single target. Her other option at rank 1 is called Seed of Knowledge, also called Seed of Wisdom. This is a support skill, where Taair dispels 1 debuff from all allies within 2 tiles around the target, granting them Increased Speed 2, which again is a buff that increases speed by 100, and Meditation, which is a buff that restores 1 energy at the start of the turn, and these buffs last for 2 turns. So with this skill, you're getting AoE energy regeneration, which is amazing, because all of the allies within that target area are going to get this meditation buff, and since the buff lasts for 2 turns, each of the allies are going to get 2 energy, 1 energy per turn, and this skill only has a 2-turn cooldown, so you can technically apply the meditation buff continuously. This is a great skill for maintaining the energy of your team, especially since it's AoE. So at rank 1, you want to pick up Seed of Wisdom. At rank 3, we have a passive and a support skill. First we have Heal, also called Regenerate. This is a passive, where at the end of each turn, heals the ally with the lowest HP within 3 tiles around the character by 20% of his magic attack. This is a nice passive that provides some healing support, but his other skill at rank 3 is one of his primary skills. This is called Inner Light, also called Light of the Soul. This is a support skill that's also an instant skill, where you select 1 ally target, then restores 1 energy to all allies within 3 tiles around the target. You can't select Taair as the target. This skill has a really low cost of 1, but it does have a 3-turn cooldown. But because it's an instant skill, you can cast this to get the energy recovery. Then you can cast Seed of Wisdom to get even more energy recovery for your team. So Inner Light combos really well with Seed of Wisdom. and it helps you generate a lot of energy in a single turn. So pick up Inner Light at rank 3. At rank 5 are the reaction skills. First we have Heart of Forbearance. With this reaction skill, DOT taken is reduced by 50%. In addition, at the end of the turn, if the character is affected by control effects, removes all control effects and gains bound immunity for 2 turns. This reaction skill is limited because it does have a 3-turn cooldown. Her other option at rank 5 is a reaction skill called Pacifism. With this reaction skill, before being attacked, dispels 2 buffs from the attacker and decreases the damage dealt by 20%. This is a more consistent reaction skill than the other option. This also benefits your entire team because it's removing buffs from enemies. So your entire team is going to benefit from this. For example, if an attack buff was removed from the enemy, now whenever that enemy hits any of your allies, they're going to take less damage than they would if the enemy still had the attack buff. This skill also doesn't have any limitations in terms of a cooldown. So this is a great supportive reaction skill, and it reduces the damage Taair takes as well. So pick up Pacifism at rank 5. At rank 7, we have a healing skill and a passive. The first skill is called Ascetic. This is a passive skill, where Taair gains 1 stack of penance after taking damage. Penance is a buff that decreases damage taken by 8%. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times and cannot be dispelled. In other words, each stack of penance decreases the damage taken by 8%. Additionally, he'll recover 1 energy if he has penance stacks at the end of each turn. This is a really nice passive because it's giving Taair a combination of energy regeneration and damage reduction. His other skill at rank 7 is called Campfire Night Talks, also called Bonfire Night Talks. This is a healing skill that inflicts sleep and tipsy on Taair and all characters within 2 tiles for 1 turn. Tipsy is a buff that increases crit by 30% and decreases damage taken by 10%, and this ability can be stacked. Additionally, it will recover 60% of HP and dispels 3 debuffs. This support skill offers a lot because it's increasing your damage, decreasing damage taken, recovering HP, and dispelling debuffs. It also only has a cost of 1, but does have a cooldown of 4. Given how much this support skill offers, it's recommended to pick up Campfire Night Talks at rank 7. Honestly, you can use a Castalia to pick up Ascetic as well, because the energy recovery that passive offers is really useful. Rank 9 are the basic attacks. First we have Dispelling Strike. This deals 80% magical damage and dispels 2 buffs on the target. The other option is Merciful Strike. This deals 80% magical damage and increases the effect of the next healing skill by 15%, lasting for 2 turns. You can pick either of these skills, it really doesn't matter. Most of the time you're not going to be using a basic attack with Taair anyway. The suggestion is to take Dispelling Strike because it gives you 3% HP when you select that skill. And at rank 11, you have a healing skill and a support skill. First we have Divine Healing, also referred to as Lay on Hands. This is a single target healing skill that heals the target for 60% of Taair's magic attack, and additionally heals all allies within 3 tiles around the target for 30% of the character's magic attack. This is a nice AoE healing skill. It does have a high cost of 3, and the other option at rank 11 is Taair's ultimate skill. It's called Dreaming in a Cage, also called Caged Reverie. This is a support skill where Taair gains Dreams in a Cage for 2 turns. Dreams in a Cage is an aura buff. It increases damage and piercing damage by 15% for all allies within 3 tiles. It also allows them to share the damage taken and grants them immunity to attribute debuff. At the end of an action, they recover 15% of HP. This effect cannot be immunized or dispelled. This skill does have a lengthy cooldown of 7, but it only costs 2 energy, and it does a lot. You're getting a damage increase, you're getting healing, you're getting immunity, so this skill provides a lot of benefits for your team. So at rank 11, you want to pick up this skill. So in terms of his skill setup, for the basic attack, you can have either skill, preferably Dispelling Strike. For his reaction skill, you're going to have Pacifism, and for his skill slots, there's one recommended setup that will help him function as an energy battery for your team. So with this setup, you'll have Inner Light, which is that instant skill that does AoE energy regeneration. You'll also have Seed of Wisdom, which is that second skill that does AoE energy regeneration for your team. This is the skill that gives meditation, so you'll get energy regeneration for 2 turns. And lastly, you'll have his ultimate skill. This is going to provide the damage buff and HP recovery to your entire team. In addition, you'll have access to Taair's historical skills, since this doesn't take up a skill slot, it's its own slot. And that gives you access to some nice buffs for damage and damage reduction, healing and dispel skills, and some nice debuffs for decreased movement and vulnerability. This skill setup makes Taair a powerful support character because it gives you access to energy restore, healing, and other buffs that help out your team. His ultimate skill does have a long cooldown. You could always swap in Campfire Night Talks instead, so you still get a damage increase and healing, but the cooldown's only 4. For his equipment setup, you'll want to use Reorganization Cube as his weapon. This is going to increase his healing effectiveness, and when you use a skill on an ally, it will additionally dispel 1 debuff. In terms of a trinket, you can use either Spring Pill or Disaster Bottle. Spring Pill is great for emergency healing, so in cases where you don't have knowledge stacks to cast Taair's historical skills, or energy to cast his regular skills. Disaster Bottle is nice because the instant skill has a lower cooldown, and it applies some nice debuffs. Both of these are a good option. In terms of his Taair Whisper, you can use something like Mercy of the High Priestess. This will increase his healing effect by 15%, or you can use something like Elegance of the Empress. This will convert 1 debuff on the target into a level 1 buff that lasts for 2 turns. Either of these are good options and will increase his ability as a support. Taair is an extremely powerful support character with a unique skill mechanic that grants him access to extra healing and support skills beyond what he gets from his skill tree. He also has a unique function as an energy recovery battery for your team, while also offering healing and dispel skills and powerful team-wide buffs for increasing damage and damage reduction. Taair can easily chain skills together to provide energy recovery, healing, damage buffs, and debuffs to the enemy, all in a single turn. I do want to note, a lot of his power and flexibility in using his skills is locked behind star level. It's recommended for him to be at least 3 or 4 stars. However, he's absolutely a top tier support character. He's definitely worth summoning for and building if you get him. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.